I want you to think of when you were in grade school and your teacher asked you to make a drawing. I'm sure many of us started the same way all young artists do, and we just painted the Mona Lisa and called it a day. Now, I'm sure if we were in person, I would have gotten at least one chuckle out of the audience, at least I'd hope, but alas, we have to find different creative solutions to deliver this talk. We all remember those grade school drawings, right? We draw the sun on the top corner, some clouds, the Windows XP meadows, birds that look like they were abstracted typographic M letter forms, maybe some flowers or stick figures of your parents and dog. But there's a point in every child's life where that creativity fleets, right? The freedom to express oneself or be creative even begins to shrink or diminish. Maybe it was someone telling us our art was bad, or, hey, what's that supposed to be? Something happened to each of us where we decided being practical was actually better than being creative. And not to say that you can't be both, because I promise you, you need both. But there's a moment in time when each of us, at least once, have said, I'm just not that creative. Now, I consider myself a creative, but there are times when I hit a wall I just can't climb over. What I find is that that wall was built by my own comfort. I was comfortable with my style of thinking, my style of making, even my style of being. Now, I'm going to tell you a number of stories today that really defined how I arrived at this moment in time speaking with you. Like each one of you, I have specific checkpoints that changed my perspective on how I would continue living. What I ask of you is think about the uncomfortable situations you've been in and how you use creative problem solving to actually solve them. So what does it even mean to be creative? And whenever someone mentions creativity, we're always like, let's think of the arts. But I don't believe that's true. You can find creativity in any discipline. Every concentration uses and implements creativity to solve unique problems within that field. We see it in the sciences and the humanities, but if you look at any concentration, you're going to find that creativity is actually an aspect of discovery. To be creative is to allow yourself to become a tool for an outcome. It's to allow yourself to become the medium for which you are creating. Now, I've been a skateboarder since I was 7 years old. Some of you see a city as an urban landscape, but I see it as this concrete playground. You'd see a bench, I see something I can slide across. You see a stair set, I see a launch ramp. You see some grass in between two surfaces, I'm gonna jump that. But to see these fun obstacles, I had to rewire my mind to literally think more creatively. I had to tell myself, how can I use this landscape to maximize my fun? I'd always been skating with a camera at my side. It was the age of MySpace, LiveJournal, Zanga. The ability to just instantly share what you were doing with friends and strangers alike. And this might seem so normal now, but back in the early 2000s, this was like revolutionary. I'd upload my work to various platforms and get instant constructive criticism or even compliments on my compositional considerations. I was skateboarding in Newark, New Jersey, taking photos, going to local skate spots. I met my mother at Rutgers University, and we actually just stumbled on an art gallery on the campus. A senior graphic design portfolio review was on view. Behind the reception desk was an Egyptian, like myself, so naturally my mom just started chatting her up in Arabic and telling her what I was into. As all mothers do, my mother gassed me up, and she told this college student that I make the best designs ever, that I taught myself Photoshop, and I have this Flickr account, and I'm getting embarrassed. So I start staring at this branding revolving around a chicken and an egg. This student, Dina Hagag, I overhear her telling my mom that she'll offer to walk us to the graphic design professor's office on campus. So that's what she does. She introduces us to Ned Drew and Brenda McManus. I start showing them my work, and they invite me to this portfolio review. Now, being 17 years old and going to a college portfolio review was pretty intense, so I decided to wear a three-piece suit, naturally. I walk in, all these other artists are wearing, paint-covered clothes, ripped jeans, looking like the stereotypical artist. I'm looking like I'm going to a wedding, but somehow I got accepted into the program. Fast forward a few months, I'm hugging my parents goodbye outside my dorm. I enter the elevator and Dina Hagag is there. She remembers me from the gallery and in Arabic says, "Whoa, you got accepted here? That's awesome. Are you still going to major in graphic design?" And I excitedly reply, "Yes." She tells me she's on her way to her new gallery and asks if I want to tag along. Without hesitation, I agree, and we're walking down the street and she starts telling me about her business partner, Rebecca Jampel, and just how incredible she is. An hour or so later, Rebecca shows up on her yellow Vespa and sees me painting the walls of the gallery, and she asks who I am. Dina replies, our new intern, of course, and just like that, in my first few hours of college, I got my first internship, and I didn't even unpack my bags yet. Class hadn't even started yet. Now, if you remember the chicken and the egg branding that I was staring at in the gallery, that was Rebecca's branding for the gallery that I was currently painting. Rebecca, Ned, and Brenda ended up becoming my best friends and greatest mentors in design, art handling, and gallery management. I was extremely lucky to learn from them, and not everyone always has the opportunity for such guidance. They'd ultimately set me on the path I'm currently on, but not without many mistakes. My lack of financial comfort forced me to be a creative in all aspects of my life. Have you ever had to decide between rent and food? Have you had to decide between student loans and the credit card bill? Each one of us have had some level of creative problem solving to find solutions to extremely uncomfortable situations. So after completing my undergrad, I did what many students do, and I took the first job that was offered to me. Student loans were calling, and I decided that I'd work as a designer in beauty and skincare. I ultimately felt like I was just lying to an audience through design, and right then and there I realized the power of design. Getting laid off from that job was actually the greatest gift. I continued to apply to low-tier design jobs. I worked in pharmaceuticals for a bit. I worked in fashion. I'm using air quotes because I was putting pictures of people's pets on men's ties. But that's a story for another time. I did some user experience and user interface work, but any job I'd receive would ultimately end the same way. I was always told, I'm sorry, Sam, or we can't offer you a full-time position at this time due to financial constraints. I'm afraid we'll no longer be needing your freelance services. And just like that, all over again, I was jobless, so I was making my ends meet through creative means. I found this shopping cart. I painted it matte black. I'd start pushing it through Central Park, trying to sell my own work for $1 per print. Now, the crazy thing about selling prints is no one's ever going to say no to buying art for $1. If you ask 300 strangers in a day, usually 299 of them are going to say yes to buying art for $1. I was making really good cash back then, but it was never enough to cover my student loans, my rent, my groceries, all the bills that would just accumulate. To make these prints, I'd been going to a friend's studio where she'd host an event every Wednesday called Print Club. It was a printmaking club where you'd pay $10 and be able to print all night long using her personal ink and paper. It turned into this beautiful artist collective where we just inspire each other to make more creative and outlandish creations. And then what we'd do is we'd critique the craft and discuss overall techniques used to make the work. Print Club was a space where creativity just oozed out of the studio, or at least it was, until the shop under our shop caught fire, and then the city decided to close the building and then board it up because it deemed it unsafe. But that's when our nonprofit journey actually began. I'd say prior to that, we were comfortable. But I'm telling you this because when your back is up against the literal wall, the only direction you can move is forward. We were extremely uncomfortable now. Losing our studio and storage of all of our equipment actually created a creative opportunity for a collective to problem solve together. The print shop ended up finding a new space. It got its 501c3 status, which made it a nonprofit, and grew into a large organization that's still open today. But we never changed our mission statement, and we never changed our price of $10. Our goal was to support the fine art of printmaking by providing affordable, accessible workspaces, educational programming through classes and workshops, and exhibition spaces that were dedicated to the fine art of prints. My business partners Lisa Conrad, Stephen McKenzie, and Jacqueline Cruz never wanted to change what the print shop meant to the community, nor change how the community interacted with it. Our goal was always affordability and creativity. Now flash forward 5 years, it's 2017, I'm 28. I had a studio to make my work in. I had an office dedicated to my job as a university educator. I had a nonprofit that allowed me to interact with my community. I had freelance work installing art in major museums and galleries in New York City. I was telling visual narratives in my art shows, exhibitions, and residencies around the world. I was amplifying voices. I told stories through music and photography. I designed for companies I actually believed in. I was a creative driven by my own beliefs and narratives. So I thought, what an amazing time to take all this rad stuff and just throw it away. I started to purge my responsibilities and career paths and decided to try something new. And that's what I did. I applied to grad school while I was literally on the floor of Palazzo Monti, an artist residency program in Brescia, a city in northern Italy, and began to purge all of my belongings and responsibilities. My business partners continued to run the print shop without me, and I pursued other means of creativity. I was getting too comfortable with my lifestyle, and I felt all my creativity fleeting. I fell into the same routine, where it just led to many mistakes that I learned from greatly. I needed something new, somewhere new. So I Googled best design school in the world, and I applied to the Royal College of Art in London and somehow got in. I thought, this is it. Man, you are moving to London. You're going to say things like quid and in it, and you're going to make the sickest work ever. But instead, I chose the unexpected route and took an offer that better fit what I was looking for at a grad school and decided to attend the University of Washington in Seattle. Looking back, this was the best decision of my life. I received my Master's of Design there. The University of Washington reminded me of that young designer who was just excited to make and learn. It gave me the freedom to express myself and experiment through various facets of design, some I had never even been exposed to. It continued to allow me to teach and learn from my students while giving me a job, financial support, and even health insurance, which was so important to me at the time. Now, I'm by no means a rich man. To be honest, I've never really had any money. I'd work 80 hours a week just to survive. I remained uncomfortable for what I consider all of my 20s to stay creative and appreciate what I have now in my 30s. I'm currently a visiting assistant professor of design at Pacific Lutheran University in Washington State. I would argue that I'm comfortable, but I'm using the discomfort of the pandemic to think of new ways to make work and to engage with my community. Discomfort has always been a constant in my life, but so has curiosity and drive. Drive to make, drive to succeed. Drive to always push forward, learn more, and to experiment more. I allowed my creativity to assist me in problem solving. I allowed my creativity to guide me towards critical thinking. I want you to think of that childhood drawing again. And think about when you thought, I'm just not that creative. The ability to be creative is in all of us. Sometimes we just have to reorganize the chaos and look at the problem from a different angle. And think outside the parameters of normal, like what even is that? We are currently living in the most important time of our lives, a time when we need to solve the ever-growing issues of today with creativity regardless of the subject matter. I believe we can solve large systemic problems with creative problem solving and critical thinking. Our future depends on allowing ourselves to become uncomfortable, to get our hands dirty, to experiment and not be afraid to fail, to have difficult conversations and actually push society forward. Now, I don't have the solutions to these problems, but some of you specialize in the wicked problems of today. How will you use your creativity and ingenuity to move forward? How will your last mistake guide you to your next experiment? Our best teacher is our last mistake, so don't give up after you hit that creative block. Do not stop learning from your mistakes and educating yourself along the way. And when you've absorbed that education, pass it on to the next person. The hoarding of information will never allow our society to flourish. But in the meantime, do not be afraid to break the bounds of normalcy. And remember, comfort kills creativity. Thank you.